going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to 32 NFL off seasons in 32 days. Today, day number 28, we are going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, once again last season, showing his genius as he guided a team that started three different QBs. One of those quarterbacks was quite literally the last pick of the most recent draft, Mr. Irrelevant. He guided that team to a 13-4 record and emerged throughout the season as really the only true threat to Philadelphia in the NFC. Unfortunately, not even the genius of Kyle Shanahan could overcome losing four quarterbacks over the course of a season and having to have Christian McCaffrey play as the emergency quarterback against the best team in the NFC last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, in the NFC Championship game. I mean, let's be honest, they pretty much bowed out of that game as soon as Purdy went down. I want to say their fourth-string quarterback was maybe Josh Johnson. I could be wrong, but either way, he got hurt, and then it was up to Christian McCaffrey, who doesn't throw the football, is not a quarterback. So the Niners still sporting one of the best defenses in the league. What else have they done this offseason to try to keep up with the Eagles and to stay ahead of the other teams that are kind of nipping at their heels? Let's talk about it. Key additions this offseason. When you have an opportunity to take a top player from the team that knocked you out of the playoffs, you take that opportunity. And the 49ers did just that by signing defensive lineman Javon Hargrave to a big ol' 4-year, $84 million contract. He was an absolute menace on that defensive line last year, and teaming him up with Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead makes for a vicious defensive line. I really do love that addition. I also really like the defensive line addition in Clelin Ferrell, former number 4 overall pick, coming in on a cheap prove-it deal, and he'll be alongside of these other beasts on this defensive line. I think his production is going to skyrocket this year. He'll get a ton of one-on-one opportunities to take advantage of. And like I said, it's only a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. Very, very cheap prove-it deal. I really think that's a savvy addition for them. And now, I don't know if this can be considered a key addition, but I did not hate the Sam Darnold edition, guys. I didn't hate it. Yeah, I like to give Sam Darnold some crap here and then, but I like this addition. Only 25 years old at the end of the day. A 1-year deal for $4.5 million is a great value add. And no, like I said, he has not lived up to being the number 3 overall pick that he was, but at least last year he looked competent at times for a low-talent Carolina team. And if Darnold ends up having to play this upcoming season for the Niners, then something has gone very, very wrong. He's just simply the break glass in case of emergency quarterback for them. If Lance gets hurt and if Purdy both get hurt, then Sam Darnold gives them at least a chance, I think. I can't hate that move, and I can't hate on that move too much. Key losses. Much like the Eagles when I talked about them, when your team is very good, other teams are going to start picking off your players as soon as they get the opportunity. However, I think the most impactful loss for the 49ers going forward is losing defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans, who is now the head coach in Houston. He had that defense running like a fine-tuned machine, man. They were so good, and he was such a good coordinator for them. Yes, there's a ton of talent on that defense, but he was still pulling all of the right strings and pushing all of the right buttons to make it go. So that's a tough loss. They also lost former first-round pick and starting right tackle Mike McGlinchey, who did get an absolute bag from Denver. So that one's a tough loss, especially if they haven't replaced him, which we'll get to as we go. And then they also maybe, I put maybe in parentheses here with a question mark, maybe they lost Jimmy Garoppolo to Las Vegas. I've been kind of following along to that story, and I know he failed a medical, and if he had failed another medical, then the deal was off, and then maybe he goes back to San Francisco, but I guess he maybe signed a waiver or something. I don't know. If you know, or if you have more information than I do, get in the comments down below. Let me know what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo, because I'm very curious. So they also lost Samson Ebukam and Charles Omenihu, both solid rotational edge rushers for them last year. Honestly, Samson Ebukam got a lot of money, so he was pretty solid for them last year. And then Charles Omenihu going to Kansas City. Jimmy Ward also left to follow DeMeco Ryans to Houston, which particularly hurts because I think he was a leader on that defense. Fred Warner, captain. Fred Warner, captain at the middle linebacker position. And then you had guys like Nick Bosa at the defensive line as a captain. And then Jimmy Ward was really the captain in that secondary. So that's a tough loss. Quite a few losses for them that in free agency maybe they didn't really fill. So how have they addressed it? Let's talk draft. 49ers were without their first-round pick this year thanks to the trade with the Miami Dolphins that ended up netting them Trey Lance. They also didn't have their second-round pick or their third-round pick this year due to the Christian McCaffrey trade mid-season, which was a great trade, by the way. But they did get some comp picks, and with their first pick of the draft in the third round, they took Jair Brown, safety out of Penn State. He was solid there. He was actually the team MVP this year, which says, I think, a lot about his character. And I want to say he ended up either 10th or 12th, top 12 all-time in interceptions for Penn State itself. So that's not a bad pick in the third round, especially considering they lost Jimmy Ward. With their other third-round pick, they made a very head-scratching move that I do not like personally, taking Jake Moody, the kicker out of Michigan. You heard me right. Listen, Moody was a very, very good kicker for Michigan throughout his career, but I just cannot get behind taking him at pick number 99, especially when you have holes at a premier position. Look at the free agency additions I talked about. They have not replaced Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. They're currently going into the season with Colton McKivitz at right tackle, and I promise you, if you're not a diehard 49ers fan, you have no clue who this dude is because he's never had to start before. That does not feel good to me, especially when you have three quarterbacks who have all been injured at times. Trey Lance has missed a ton of time. Brock Purdy got hurt at the end of last year, and now Sam Darnold has been hurt at times in his career too, and you've got a right tackle that nobody knows. Maybe he's amazing and we all just don't know it. I find it unlikely. And then I think that pick hurts even more because an offensive lineman like DeJuan Jones was still on the board. He probably would have been their day one starter at right tackle, in my opinion. An absolute mountain of a man. Could have gotten him, and they just didn't. They chose to go kicker. And they had Robbie Gould last year, and he's just sitting there in free agency, man. He would take a deal. Kickers and punters are positions you really typically don't pay, especially if you have holes where you need to fill other positions. And they had a hole, and they had an opportunity to take somebody, and they didn't. They had another third-round pick, and they chose to pick tight end Cameron Latu out of Alabama. I also didn't love that pick, man. I really didn't. Didn't put up great numbers last year for an Alabama team that didn't have a bona fide number one receiver taking all of the targets. So it's not like he's not getting opportunity. And he had 30 catches for 377 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not great production and not a need when you've got George Kittle still playing that position. I didn't love that one. There is a pick I can get behind. That pick was D. Winters, linebacker out of TCU. Took him in the 6th round. Very solid career at TCU. And honestly, think about it. That name, D. Winters, you're telling me that in 3 years we're not all going to look at that pick and go, damn, how'd they get him in the 6th round? That is the name of a stud. It's like when they drafted Fred Warner in the 3rd round. He's proven to be a stud now, so, hindsight's always 20/20. But that name, Fred Warner, wow, does he feel like a stud? That name's just strong. D. Winters is a strong name. I think he could be good, and that might be the saving grace of this class. Honestly, guys, this might be my least favorite draft of all of the NFL. My least favorite draft class. No first or second round pick, which obviously hurts, and then a kicker in the 3rd round while ignoring other more important needs. There were a couple of okay picks in there. I like the safety out of Penn State, and like I said, I like the D. Winters addition out of TCU, but that does not cover this class. Like I said, this is my least favorite draft class, and for their draft, I give them a D. Whew, that's tough. Overall, this offseason, though, I don't really see that they've made up a ton of ground on Philadelphia. And once again, I would like to take a moment and remind everybody listening to this, this is not a roster grade. I think the 49ers will still be a very, very good team. But this offseason and the offseason moves they have made, I really do think Javon Hargrave is a great addition to that defensive line, but they have a gaping hole at right tackle, and I just can't ignore that. Had they addressed that, we'd be having a different conversation. But as it stands, this feels to me like an average offseason and a bad draft. Overall, I give their offseason a C. But even with, and what kind of team will the Niners be? Even with a below average to average offseason, I still think the 49ers win the NFC West. And I still think that they will be a team that's likely playing on Championship Sunday competing for the NFC Championship game. Because they are just so well coached. Kyle Shanahan is quarterback proof. I don't care who they throw out there, except Christian McCaffrey. That doesn't count. But if you give him a quarterback to work with, they're going to be just fine. And a little bit of health and stability at that position can really take them a long way, I think. And, they're going to probably win 12, 13 games again this year. You can just go ahead and book that. So that's all I got for you guys today on the San Francisco 49ers. And I will see you all tomorrow for day number 29 of 32 NFL offseasons in 32 days.